Great, thank you. Um, my name is Awuku-Gyampoh. I'll be taking you through evangelism and church growth. Today, I want to hammer on what church growth is about. What exactly is church growth? And when someone asks you, please, what is church growth? You should be able to explain this vividly to the person. As I did ask you, you gave me various definitions which were all correct. But the bigger question is, what is Jesus saying about the church? In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 16, verse 18, Jesus said, I will build my church. So the builder of the church is no other person than Jesus Christ. Again, in Pauline theology, Paul did encourage the Corinth church and said that by the grace God has endowed us, I, Paul, laid the foundation as an expert builder. And Paul is talking about building the body of Christ. And that is in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 10. So Paul is a builder. Jesus lays every foundation for us. Again, once we've gotten the biblical foundation, let's now go to look at what scholars and what institutions have also said. One of the writers, which I love the writings, who has written extensively with his colleagues, Rayner and Rayner. These two authors put together an extract from the North American Society for Growth. When the North American Society for Church Growth was drafting the constitution of church growth, they gave this definition, which I'm going to read to you. It's a direct quote. That church growth is that discipline which investigates. The word investigation should be underlined. The nature, expansion, planting, multiplication, function, and health of Christian churches as they relate to the effective implementation of God's commission to disciple all peoples. And so if I pick the definition, I can tell you that Matthew's Gospel, chapter 28, the verse 18 through to 20, motivated the definition of the North American Society for Church Growth. To them, church growth is an exploitation. Church growth is a survey. Church growth is an investigation. And so church growth in our context will not be a kind of theoretical, but we will go to the field to really see if we have grown, or we are growing, or yet to grow. And that will be our final assessment of this class. Pretty much, that would also be adding up to the body of knowledge, adding up to the academic bank, and that will be my motivation, if you ask me. So, in this context, also for Awuku-Gyampoh, what are we talking about? What kind of growth is church growth? Do you get the question now? What kind of growth is church growth? And I love the way you all brought various definitions of letting us know what church growth is about. A church growth may grow by one or a combination of three sources. Still Rayner and Rayner, one of their books in 1999, page 24. I'm also recommending to you to read more on Rayner and Rayner. You could Google it and find. One thing I like about Rayner and Rayner is the fact that he's come down to us and he's written several such things. Go to Twitter, Facebook, other social media platforms, and you would see articles of Rayner and Rayner. I used his work in my dissertation. So we have the transfer growth, the conversion growth, and the biological growth. As the name implies, biological growth when babies are born, when babies are made, when babies are dedicated in the church, when babies are baptized in the church. So surely they add up to the church and the church's numerical strength. We have where you go and make disciples of all nations, let people come back to Christ, and that is a conversion growth. So in the survey, class captain, write some of these things. The questions will be coming as I'm teaching. In the survey, one of the questions would be, in your church, what has been the trend of growth? 1, transfer. 2, conversion. And I can make it evangelism. 3, biological. And so you're going to choose one. Or if you feel that you want to write something on it, you can also write it beneath. If I want to really find out in our class, what has been the source of growth in our church? What has been the source of growth in our church? So transfer growth is where someone is from Australia, has been moved to US. Someone from US has moved to Canada. Someone from Calgary has gone to maybe Saskatoon, or someone from Ohio has gone to Manhattan, and all that. Transfer. Research shows that this kind of intra transfers do not really grow the church universally. It only adds up to the local church, but universally is the same thing. The church doesn't grow. I can say that as of now, presbytery, we are around 680. We are not up to 700. It is anticipated that next year, the whole presbytery will go up to about 700 and 720 and thereabout. This would mean that as church growth students, we have to find out why we're not growing. And we have to find out why we think we are growing, what we can do to adapt to the number. Again, my good people, then it is very important for us to look at some of the awful attitudes that kill church growth. In a 20-page report by Lafleur, his name is Willie Lafleur, he brought a very powerful script in my context, in my view, in my judgment, because he highlighted the basic things. I'm sure he brought 5, 6 reasons why people think that the church is not growing. His work is a survey, and for me, I like a survey because people answered. Over 100 people responded to his questionnaire, and therefore I see it as valid in doing a qualitative research. I see it as very valid, because it said that if you pick 12, 15, 16, 18, 20 people to do this research, then it becomes valid in the context and it can be applied in other part of the world. Inability to meet the digital needs of the people. The researcher found that most churches do not see the need to embrace technology and social media. And so the trend has gone from listening to radio, how many people listen to radio? But you just go on the media and then you get the information there. When we are not able to meet the demands of our people in the church, we are likely to let people leave the church. to let people's attention be drawn to something else. In my study, I found that technology is pivotal to the growth of a church. Professor Asamoah Gyedu, in one of his writings, to look at how the Western world has impacted church growth, especially migrants, he found out that the use of technology has become a new form of spirituality, that we grow by visiting WhatsApp platforms, read messages, forward messages to friends. And so someone can just be picking the phone, and just by holding the phone, the person will be nourishing the soul. And so if a church decides not to embrace technology, that church is doing more harm than good. The number two is that we lack outreach strategy for targeted demographic group. In talking about demographics, also in your research, you would also ask the people responding to the questionnaire the educational background, the age range, the gender, whether male or female. I'm not sure I'm going to write both. No, not in this survey. Sorry. Then again, the number of years a person has been with the church. 1 year, 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years. And then perhaps we'll talk about in that, or we'll look at the range. We'll look at the range. All right. So you should know which area. Do we have married or single? So how many married, how many singles responded to the questionnaire? Do we have any correlation between the women and the men? How many men do we have in the church? How many women responded to the survey? And looking at the survey, do we say that it is men dominated or female dominated? That would also have impact on the final outcome of our study. So that if you lack outreach strategy for targeted demographic group, you're going to have a problem. You should know your context. How many people respond to your church or your church's call? Is your church dominant of women, dominant of youth, or what? When you know these areas, you're able to target it very well. And so the research found that we lack strategy for targeted demographic group. One of the persons, I'm sure WE there, forgive me, just to concentrate on the message, said that we are also not using lay persons in our outreach programs, which is why we are struggling, which is why the church is not growing. Dark Keyword Mills. He argued that lay persons are pillars of huge networks for largest single churches in the world. And in his argument, he brought a very fine scenario of how a single person collaborated with the mother-in-law, established a church. The church in the year 1958, the 15th of May, established a church. And with 4 people, 19 years after, that church grew to 50,000 membership. So when I was reading this book, you can look for it, Dark Keyword Mills, Church Growth. I recommend that book. It's so great. It's good. It's got the facts and figures. And when I see work that is research based, I tell you, it's bringing some knowledge to the theological scene. And so in his write-up, he says that as of 2007, the LA Times Los Angeles Times reported that the world largest single church is no other church but the Full Gospel Church that was founded by David. As I talk, I've not checked it though, but according to Doug Hewitt Mills, 2011, page 16, he says that the research found that the membership is 830,000 membership, a church that was founded by one person. One person. How old is Ghana now? I'm sure we celebrated the 65th anniversary. So if that is the case, currently the church is 66 years. And look at the number. I'm sure 7 years back or 5 years back or something, we are in 2020. So it means now the number should double or something else. What is the membership of your church? How old is your church? And how is the numerical growth slope in the church? Lay persons play a very great role in the church, and that's, if you want to grow your church, I want to encourage you to involve the lay. Involve them. The lay simply means Lagos, and that means a person with no skill, a person who's not a catechist, a person who's not a minister, a person who's not an expert, yet the person can contribute to the growth of the church. Again, look at the immediate past. I think the President Obama, during his campaign, he used the lay persons to raise funds for his ministry. And he was able to raise almost about $80 million to boost his campaign. If we want to build a church, let's not underestimate the role of the laity. They're powerful. If a church can run 7 Sundays, how Jesus? I'm looking for that opportunity. And my church can run at least 3 services to begin with. That my church can run 3 services, morning, afternoon, evening. What a joy. So why would we fight the church if our church wants to run 2 services? Boy, no. We have to all come together and then together. Please, I beg you, excuse me. The church is running 7 Sunday services and translating into 16 languages. Can we go beyond that? Let's look at the third point, not identifying your target demographics. You need to, the other one I said that we lack the outreach strategy. And this one is not identifying your target. So that you should have in mind that there are areas you have to look at. And so this one, I gave you the criteria to look at. Now, the criteria is this. You identify your people. So Luther again comes in the page 12 of his work and says that you need to look at what is important to your people, your church, your local church. What is important to them? What are their interests? What are their values? What are their behaviors? And what are their beliefs? Now, then you go again to say that I'm sure believes that to be FS, right? That's right. So that's going to be FS on this one. I can continue to be giving excuses. Let me correct that for you. And let's see. So all right, so let me correct this one too for you. And then let me share it again. Yeah. So let me share it this way for you. Okay, I've shared it again for you. All right, so Hebrew Mills is corrected here. And then what are their beliefs also here? All right. Now, again, the next one is, where do they spend more time? Look at it, get it, identify them. Where do your church members, where do they spend more time? Now, again, come to this one. What do they do for fun? You people in your community, again, what are their frustrations and challenges? Get to know it. What music do they listen to? Or what media do they use? Do they use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat? What do they use? Don't come and preach and say, I'm sorry, I'm Snapchat. Masa, know what they use and meet them there. Meet them there. You want to never say the view, home view crowd. So, Munja is Agokray, or you know, Munja Branti or hey. Let's think of ourselves now. So, what are the expectations in the church? I told you the other day that when you go to a place, know the expectations. Royal Papa, you're welcome. In fact, one of my names is Royal Papa. When you call me Royal Papa, I give you $100. So please try not to call me, because if you call me, I'm owing you $100. All right. So what are the expectations in the church? They have to tell you what they expect from you, and you have to meet them. When you do this, according to the researcher, when you do this, it's going to help you and guide you. These are not my views. Again, check growth strategies. So this has duplicated itself, right? So ignore this one. Now let's go. If you look at this from that angle, it tells you anyone who has done management before should understand that this is what the people, these are the things that people need. And so automatically it leads you to Abraham Maslow's hierarchical needs theory. And so you have to come purely to know, okay, fine. What is Abraham Maslow talking about? And he gave it in a way that you can have the physiological, or perhaps the physical and the spiritual needs of the people. That you should understand that people take it, maybe let's say from the top or the down to the top. Let's say maybe from that, whichever direction you want to take it, it still follows one another. All right. So from the down, the basic needs of people. People need food. People need water. People need to sleep. It's a basic need. It's a biological, it's a physical, it's a physiological need. When they are down, they need to check their health. They need to check their finances. And so once the person finishes eating, that's all. He's not going to talk about something else, right? Then because they've gotten the security they need, the finances they need some kind of intimacy. They need that kind of family connection. They need that kind of friendship. They want to be loved by someone, to be cherished by someone, and that'll be good. Then you go to the esteem. They need to be respected in a way. You see, when I came, I started with a sense of humor. Yes, it is a sense of humor, but if I want to put it into the study of Abraham Maslow, I would say that some kind of recognition. I said, my wife says, I'm handsome. It is a way of belonging. Then somebody said, Masa Hunya for some call channel. So everyone wants to be felt like kind of respect. Everyone wants to have some status in life. Everyone wants to be recognized at some level. Everyone wants that kind of a self-esteem. Me a pencil. Me a pencil. Or me a person. Right? And it's a true baby na onipa amfa onidie amawa. Now we're at hope. Onipa raise hard, I feel the overself you. Me promise me I didn't reason. What did I say I'm gonna do on this planet? I said I want to be A, I want to be C, Now we want to have that kind of self-actualization. Want to meet our potentials in my life. I don't know, but anyone who has met me before, even way back in the primary school, I said to myself, I want to be a doctor. I didn't know the kind of doctor I want to be, but I just told myself that, well, I feel I want to be a doctor, and that's it. And so until so when I finished my first doctorate, I was like, no. I want to go again. I want to go again. I'm not satisfied. I want to go again. And that's it. So that's me. Forget about me. So what will let you see your potentials in life? Now that I'm done with my blah blah blah, if you ask me, I was okay, I want to do my postdoctorate. The Amislo Ekan said, human beings will never be satisfied. ELPB, oh, bombody konya Toyota. Ozio Toyota no crowd say me pay Benz. Munya Benz me blah 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 blah. You know what? The same thing. Also pass a penny, you must have penny, Yamiadum, come on. There's a penny across a little bit. But some cost of you. So now I'm knowing a share of catechist, which is beautiful. Catechist here would hear my bomb call of a failure be. So if that's of fool, it's not bad. No, it's not bad at all. But that is human being. That is human being. Maybe a mom says example, a branch number or sister, when you me fair, was me fair, me who are A, B, C, D. Say, I am poor, say, I pro, we are going to say, when you know, no, your friend is saying, First Kings chapter 11, no, as I call, verse 3. Solomon got 700 wives, 300 concubines. What I'm going to let us say, a cosa, Aditina, 700, 700 wives, Adi, at the end. And the same thing, so making when you're near come out, then so what you say. Now, I've not got college tea, maybe another drink. Move on, I'm going to hear to us. The next one is to look at not prioritizing teaching about generosity. And so there are a lot of people, the church is struggling because we have not taught the people. We have not taught the people. Teaching is missing in the Bible. It's missing in the churches. We don't teach them. And so please note this question. How often do you do teaching in your church? We are not victimizing anyone, but again, one of the things that we are using Lovelace and Renes and Warrens and Co. as our literature review, as our backends, and so we base on that to develop our quantitative questions and ask people whether teaching is done specifically on generosity, or teaching is done on commitment, or teaching is done on discipleship, whether people have been detailed enough about discipleship and evangelism. And that is to say that we have not been doing it, according to this researcher. The fifth point says that we lack investment in staffs and volunteer. So again, the question would be, how often has the church organized training programs for the leadership, for the volunteers in the church, the organists, the ushers, name them, the instrumentalists? How often? How many times? So once, twice, thrice, many times. So after the survey, me and you will sit down and say, okay, you realize that out of because all of us are going to get about 2020. So if we are 5 year to 2 by 500, out of the 100 respondents, 80% says that they have never had training for instrumentalists or organists, or 90% said they've had it thrice and many times. Then our findings would be, we are going to defute the point that have been raised by Woolley to say that lack of investment in staff and volunteers. Again, to also prove this point true or false, we're also going to look at it. How often have we had meetings separately with the volunteers of the church? or the staff of the church. Perhaps the staff of the church will not be common in your area. If you are not a full-time worker, you wouldn't see the permanent staff, but we'll link on the volunteers. Those who have said they want to lead a Bible study, they want to Bible study teachers. Those who have said they want to be preachers. Those who want to be lead teachers. Those who want to be ushers. How often have we invested in them? What have we invested? What kind of investment did we make in them? Now we either prove this point wrong, or we also correlate our points with it, and that becomes a scholarship. Again, another beautiful person. I can't stop teaching without talking about this wonderful man that I've found his work so beautiful, so beautiful. Elements that drive a church for growth. I would wish to recommend to you Rick Warren. Rick Warren is an outstanding professor. He's written Purpose-Driven Church, Purpose-Driven Life. And if you would please find Purpose-Driven Church to read it, it's going to be so helpful to you, very helpful to you. Rick Warren, I got to know Rick Warren when I became the Mission Evangelism Director of Reverend Dr. Ofuswadu way back at Insamom Emmanuel as the Mission Evangelism Coordinator at the time, ELTC. I read this book and it helped me, and we were able to establish several churches even at that time. So now, the Purpose-Driven Church devoted part 2 of his work, especially page 90 to 100, to how a church can be motivated, or how a church is motivated over the years. And 7 of the points will marvel you how it helps. 1, it says that 1, what drives your church? To what drives? So I even picked 6 of the points. That's fine. So 6 areas. What drives your church? Your church, what drives it? We'll look at that one today. But let me just outline these ones. The foundation for a healthy church. What is the foundation? Now, defining your purpose. What is the purpose? Have you been detailed of the purpose of your church? Now, have you communicated the purpose to the church? Okay. Have you organized people around your purpose? Have you applied your purpose? So let me not take much of your time, but end my message and also tell you that the next professor will arrange a different date with you and come. He's been engaged elsewhere. So what drives your church? The prophet, the man of wisdom, the teacher, did say that many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. And whenever you are quoting the Bible, please look at the example on the screen and please quote it. If it is quote verbatim, then let me do it correctly for you. If you want to quote verbatim, then so it goes this way. It goes like this. So you write this one like that, and then you bring this one too like this. So you can see that you have many, which is quoted, many other plans, blah, blah, blah. Then it is quoted like that. You see there's no full stop here. Then you bring in parentheses. What is the text? Proverbs. What is the chapter? This. What is the verse? That. Comma. Then it spaces. Which parts? What Bible version or which Bible version did you use? Is it NIV? Is it ESV? Then you write it. So this is the best way to bring out a text, whether you are preaching, you want to be on the screen, or you're writing a report to a church, or you're writing a letter to a friend, or you're writing an example or presenting an assignment. Please do it correctly this way. And forever you be a blessing to the academic. All right. All right, let's continue again. According to myself, certain things attract people to church. And whenever such things are ignored, the church suffers and decline in membership. Now, this congruent what Warren had established 27 years back, that all churches are driven by something. So what Rick Warren found or discovered, I also found the same thing. That a near may be sorry, a near may be so many signed to that song. So now, what exactly should be the force? What should be controlling? What should be directing? And what is behind what? When you pick his work, you also see how I quoted it. Warren 1995, 93. You space and then you bring it there. Just like one of them. Is it anyone that picks Warren's book, flips to page 95? Well, I use a soft copy, and so the soft copy gave me this page. And if you don't see it in this page, you may go to maybe 70, 93, 95, 94. You see it there, but you should find it there. Right. So if you get a hard copy, just flip to page 90 and see what I gave you today. These are the things that drive a church. One, tradition drives a church. Personality drives a church. Finances, programs, building, event, and seekers. I'm going to end here. So tradition. According to Rick Warren, people do say that this is what we do always. And anything you want to do new, you are stigmatized and victimized. And so my findings also discovered that, or my work discovered that the youth are leaving the church because of the rigid nature of procedure, principles, and liturgy. I see Papa as I also teach you liturgy. That's fine. My finding as a researcher is that the youth continue to complain that there's so much rigid liturgy, so much inflexibility, not so flexible, where we would have to go through the formula, go through that kind of ritual, that we need to sing this, we need to do this. Yes, sorry, etnas, yeah, koto, yeah. Mranti and say, yeah. Moses, my. For me, that's what I found out. And so most of them are leaving the church, right? Another person can find out why that has become a problem. If we say, you should understand that some people will not get it. That can affect your church. Number two. But again, tradition has been very good with churches that were established before 1950. They've been very good. They've worked with tradition, Roman Catholic. And surprisingly, all those churches established before 1950 are struggling with growth. They are struggling with growth. The Roman Catholic Church, number of people are broken away from the church. You can search, and I read several articles on that. Methodist Church, several of them. Presbyterian Church. If you don't want to know, telling you it is true. Yeah, Free Presbyterian Church. What can we do to bring them back? The second one is personality. Rick Warren says that, look, the church is there. We believe in Jesus Christ. We believe in the Holy Spirit. But personality counts. Personality counts in church formation. So these 7 points that were raised by Rick Warren, we are also going to experiment them in our church through the quantitative survey to have the agree, disagree, strongly agree, neutral, in that order, to ascertain whether rigid traditions have affected us or not. Personality, the nature of your pastor, the nature of the catechist, whether that has affected your church or not. This is steady. We are not victimizing anyone. We want to find out. We believe that we need to find out what is happening. And so don't be afraid of the research you're going to do. Nobody's going to beat you. This is school, and the essence of a school is to have findings that we can say it's for us. Now listen to me. Every one of us, or yes, each one of us, right? Your personality will either grow a church or reduce the number. Argue about this. Now, my findings, my study discovered that if we have a minister that is easygoing, people feel very comfortable coming to the minister to confide in the minister. All right. If you have a minister that has the word that can preach and shake the pulpit, people do come to church. If you have a minister that knows how to talk to the members, that has that sense of humor, the wisdom, the ability to handle issues like Solomon, when initially they brought 2 women, brought 1 girl, one claiming that the child is hers and that they should cut the child into pieces. And the other says, no, don't cut it. Use the wisdom to say, the one that says don't cut, don't divide the child into 2, give the child to the person. From the basis of Rick Warren, he says that when a church frequently changes a minister, it affects the church. And then the laity becomes powerful. So that in the church, like Calvary can have pastors and be changing pastors, but Brother Henry will continue to be revered by several persons. That's just an example. Don't get me wrong if it's not so, but just a certain example like that. And so any minister that comes, if you're not doing what the people expected of you, as I said, about knowing, identifying your target audience and knowing what is wrong with them, they will begin to work against you, and the power goes to the laity. Brian, or maybe Brother Patrick, we told you ABCD and all of that. Again, Rick Warren said that if the power comes on the laity, should the laity be transferred or grows and God calls the person, it affects the church. Whether we want to believe it or not, as far as my 13 years in ministry is concerned, as a researcher, I established that personality in ministers, personality amongst catechists affects church growth. No doubt about it. That is what I found. At the end of your study, we as a class, we determined to get 97, 98%, A+. Because if we get below 95, we've gotten A. We don't want an A, we want A+. And so we're going to work so hard to get 97, 98%. The work that we're going to do, we are going to give it to and external reviewers to review our work for us. So they are going to mark our work for us. We are not going to mark our work. We're not going to mark our own work. So what we will do, we are going to send the work to reviewers, scholars, to look at the work we have done and tell us this is publishable. And so the work we are going to do, we're not just going to finish this work and leave it there. We're going to publish the work in an academic journal that you will be proud of yourself. You say, yes, when I was a church growth student, this work we did it. And so when it's done like that, we do it, and then we acknowledge source, we give acknowledgement to the class, and then I present on your behalf. And that is one of the pluses of a researcher. You always would have to work with your children, work with your students, and then they will help in establishing a very good, get their marks and get their A and go. And that will be a blessing to the school as well. Anyone who would want to opt out of this survey can also let me know that if you don't want to take part, we can find another way of assessing you, and you will stay out of the practical work, of the practical problem that is affecting our church. Again, finances. We've had several churches complain about finances. The church does not present budget to its members for the members to know what is in it of what they want to spend. That church suffers so much. It was also discovered that I didn't look at the finance aspect, but Rick Warren did say that the church members will always ask, how much did it cost? Why did he buy this? Why not that one? And that can bring commotion in the church. But the fourth point also correlates with my study, where I also looked at it from an angle that programs also affect the growth of the church. I'm going to end on programs. Programs affect the growth of a church. That if a church does not have very attractive programs, the church becomes a dormant church, because programs attract people. Programs bring people to church. Programs invite outsiders, and it is by so doing that we get it. For example, I organize prayer meeting every Friday and every Saturday. This program, though I do not do it physically, I do it online, and I get 300 participants. And sometimes, Papa, I'm from Israel. Papa, I'm from Ghana. Papa, I'm from London. Papa, I'm from US, and all that. So through the programs, Australia Mission has touched many lives. And that is my ministry. My ministry is all about programs. My ministry sees programs. My ministry innovates. So anything that must come out to become a hit is what I dream for, is what I research into. My study found out that if the church fails to organize youth-oriented programs, then the church will lose the youth. You must understand that this program is for the youth, and we must always support them to have the program. Requiring to say that the church's program, like the choir, the women fellowship meeting, men's fellowship meeting, youth activities, all build up the church. That was what Rick Warren found. Again, when I was just reflecting on the fact that I was saying I didn't hammer on finances, my mind brought me back and said, no, that's not true. That's what. So I'm coming back to say that it's not true. I found out that the finances of the church kind of has become the problem of the church. Now, because of prosperity gospel, we fail to do mission, and we fail to think of the church and the church's growth. That we have a lot of people, if you come to church, tithe, have you paid your tithe offering, midweek service, mini harvest, so some of these things, the research found that until we know that the main instructional period of the church must be used for the purpose of Christ's mission, churches that started very well with faith now has turned into seditious and malicious and financial oriented church. Rick Warren again brought my mind that, look, the church is not meant to make profits. The church is not a profit organization. And so churches that do save money at the bank and people suffer in the church are likely to lose membership. The church comes to say, we have $400,000 in the account. Meanwhile, there are people in the church, no scholarship for the youth, nobody gets anything when the mother or when the person is bereaved, when a child is born, maybe the education, no donation is made to the family. When this happens, the members feel that they are not being catered for. Ladies and gentlemen, today in my studies, I have presented myself to you that mission and evangelism aim at church growth, and that Jesus had his version of church growth, and that the Constitution of North American Society for Church Growth also has said that church growth is about investigation. We've looked at 5 awful ways by which church do not grow, and we have come into looking at Rick Warren, my good friend, telling us the 6 areas to consider if you want to really know the elements that drive church growth. And I base my main motivation on what drives church growth by linking you to the tradition, personality, finances, programs building, event, and seekers. If you ask me, I would add the point 6 to the point 4, because my studies found that programs and events are technically the same. So yes, I may, in a way, say that 7 points for Rick Warren to me is 6 points, and that is scholarship. You do when you're able to establish your point of yours. We're not 7, but you can have this. But I got almost about 27 factors that grow a church, and this is just a portion of it that I shared with you. May the Lord bless you. My name is Awuku-Gyampoh, and I mean, I'll take it off from YouTube, then we can do discussions, and God richly